My name is Karen Neurohr. I'm with the Oklahoma State University Library. Today is November 17th, 2007, and I'm at the Bradley 3 Ranch in Memphis, Texas, interviewing Minnie Lou Ottinger Bradley. This interview is being conducted as part of O State Stories, an oral history project of the OSU Library. Thank you for letting me come today and conduct the interview with you.
Well, thank you for coming. It'd be my pleasure.
Well, we certainly appreciate it and enjoyed our lunch that you fed my husband and I when we came too. So we thank you very much.
Hope you did.
Okay, we're going to start the interview. We want to hear about your experiences when you were at Oklahoma A&M College. And could you tell me where you're from originally?
I was raised at Hydro, Oklahoma, and finished school at Hydro.
Okay. What made you decide to go to school at Oklahoma A&M?
I'm probably one of the more fortunate people because in the 5th grade I announced what my life was going to be, and really haven't varied from it. I told everybody I was going to go to Oklahoma A&M and be on their livestock judging team. I got involved in livestock at a real young age and dearly loved it. I don't care anything about dogs. I don't care anything about cats. I always have to have the big animals. And my dad was good enough to always let me be his boy, and I went with him everywhere, and they started me out with pigs because I could handle those, and lambs. And then my dad, I was going to all the livestock shows, and he couldn't go, so I was kind of there with the FFA teacher, Klein Quattlebaum from Hydro. Well, actually, Charlie Hogan started me out, and then he moved on, and Mr. Quattlebaum took over. Wasn't anything to them because I couldn't be in FFA, couldn't be in agriculture because I was a girl. Of course, I was too young at that time anyway, but they took me on and hauled me to all the livestock shows and helped me with everything. And when I got to be about 12, 13, my dad said, I'd rather for you to be in the cattle barns than the hog barns if you've got to go to all these shows. So I got the cattle business at that time. Went over to Skytook, Oklahoma, and bought an Angus cow and a bull calf. And that was my start in the cow business. But I just had that dream all along because I loved to go to these little local 4-H judging contests. I'd get my dad on a Saturday or Sunday, wherever they were having one in the state of Oklahoma. I'd get him to drag me, and wasn't anybody to really coach me, but then you could buy books on how to judge livestock. And I probably never read another book except that book, but I studied those and said, I'm gone. And so when I graduated from high school, that's what I decided to do.
Were there many girls when you were in 4-H that were interested in livestock judging like you were?
I don't know in livestock judging. There'd be several showing calves and what have you at the livestock shows. But as far as judging, I don't think there were, in 4-H and FFA. And then, of course, when I got up to Oklahoma A&M, I had no idea that there weren't any girls, but there weren't. So I went up there, and Mr. Glenn Bratcher was the coach at that time.
And that was the fall of 1949?
Correct.
Okay.
And I was going to have an animal husbandry. It was now animal science, then it was animal husbandry class under him. And from all the shows and all, I knew who he was from seeing his picture and all. And I just walked up to him and said, I want to be on your judging team. I didn't know if he was freshman on the judging team, senior. I didn't know anything. I just said, I want to be on your judging team. And he kind of looked at me and he said, if you're good enough, you will be. And that was a start.
Had he never met you before then or heard of you?
No. And I'll tell a funny story if you want me to go ahead about what happened. Mm-hmm. I started working out. And of course, you got serious about it your junior and senior year. That's when you got to travel. Well, it came along, and we started out with about 200 boys and me, and got it down to about 25. And I knew I was doing okay, you know. And so it came time to go to Denver. And, well, to begin with, I thought, I better not put all my luck into this livestock judging, so I started working out on the mixed judging team, too. And one of my experiences that I'll never forget was Christmas, my junior year. You had to go back up there and start judging before school started. And I had to stay in Willard Hall, and I was the only human being in there. And that was the biggest hall, and I could hear more things going on than anything.
What floor were you on?
They put me on, can't remember if I was on 3rd or 4th floor. But I thought, oh my goodness. But anyway, Dr. Walters was the meat coach, and he knew I was walking, because then you didn't have cars. I mean, very few of us had cars. And I'd walk from Willard to the Animal Husbandry building. And so he picked me up one day, and I found out why he picked me up. It wasn't keep me from walking. He said, you got to make up your mind now which way you're going to go. If you're going to go on the mixed judging or the livestock judging. And I said, Dr. Walters, I believe I'm really better in livestock than I am mixed. And he said, you really are. I think you should go that way. Probably wanting to say, oh, good, I don't have to put up with it now, you know. But anyway, I continued working out on the livestock, and Denver was our first show. And they were going to post the name on the door. Mm-hmm. And I went over there, and my name wasn't on the list, and I was hurt. I couldn't figure it out. It never dawned on me. And Mr. Bratcher called me into his office, and he said, I made a deal with you 2 years ago. It was good enough, but I didn't think you'd make it. And he said, now we don't know what to do, but he said, your voice isn't low enough. I just don't think we can use you, because don't think the judges there would accept a female voice. And I knew I was a top, and really hurt. But I went home and went back to the dorm. And so next workout I was there, and it was Fort Worth time. And I went over there, and he called me in to his office, and he said, we got a real problem. He said, I've either got to break my word to you or take you. And he said, we have met with the dean of students, the dean of women, the dean of agriculture, the president of the college. There's no laws. Said we've all read all the rules we can find. We cannot see a thing that says 6 boys, a coach, and a girl can't travel together. And of course, I've been traveling on there when we go places to work out. I was there, but this is going to be overnight, you know. So he said, well, guess we'll take you. And the thing I always remember about Mr. Bratcher is that the morning that we were going to judge at Fort Worth, and another thing, it was the first time I'd been with him overnight, he put me on the same floor with him and the boys on another floor, and I kept thinking, I don't know what you're thinking about, the elevator stop each place, you know. But anyway, he thought I was safe if I was on the floor with him. Mm-hmm. But we were eating breakfast. And all of a sudden, all these other coaches in there, they started talking, and they said, I believe Jimmy Bratcher said in Chicago back in December that one thing he'd never do is carry a girl on his judging team. Of course, they sang it loud enough that he could hear, I could hear. I thought, oh my goodness. And they was giving him a hard time. And I looked over to him, I said, have I really caused you a lot of problems? And he said, well, you made me swallow a lot of things that I said, but he said, you're here, you'll be okay. And so that made me think a lot of him, because I know he was under a lot of pressure. And Dr. Darlow was the head of the department at the time. And he was a gruff old guy, and a lot of kids were scared of him. He walked up to me just as I got out of the old station wagon there at the Fort Worth Yards to judge. And he took me aside and he said, you're the first girl, and if you don't come through today, you'll be the last one. well, that kind of, I said,
Mm.
okay, just go out there and do your best,
Mm-hmm.
And I had a good day.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't, I think I was first or second in hogs that day, but overall I didn't place. But they were happy. This is my first outing out. And so from then on, I was just a regular on the team and had some good days after that.
Well, good. Well, that was quite a trip then.
Well, it really was. It really was, and I still see some people today that remembers that day.
Hmm. Well, how were you mentioned how the other coaches were reacting about that? What about the other students that you were around in Fort Worth at that time?
They kind of just left me alone and didn't know. And in Chicago, well, two different things. In Kansas City, that was one of the bigger ones. I know I pretty well proven myself to the school.
Mm-hmm.
I'd been top at the school judging and what have you, so the boys accepted me fine. But at that time, Texas A&M was an all-male school, and I didn't know Texas A&M from any other place in the United States at that time, or a lot of these other schools. I was a little hometown girl and never had been very many places, but I couldn't imagine a Texas A&M team came up to me after Kansas City right after their award ceremony, and I'd placed in the top 10 and had won the beef cattle judging, and they said, "You'll never embarrass us like this again, Texas A&M." And I got with Mr. Birch and I said, "What is it?" He said, "Well, it happens to be an all-male school, and they're just 27 girls." So anyway, I said, "Okay." So, and then in Chicago, why? It was a real funny thing happened. We had a class of Shropshire Ewes, and you set up these long tables and worked on your reasons that you were going to give. And there's a young man from Arkansas, I believe it was. He saw how I placed him. And he punched me. "You're not supposed to talk." He said, "You busted that class, and you better talk them a different way." Another old kid heard him on the other side and said, "Boy, you busted that class." And I thought, I've had just as good a coaching as anybody here. I think I'm just going to stay with my deal.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went in there and talked to him, and I talked to Perfect 50. And I know why now, because I was the only one besides the judge the class that got selected them like he did. I don't know who was right. Who was right or wrong, but it was a good day for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had several incidents. In Kansas City, the judge that took my reasons, he worked me over pretty good. And so when I walked out, I knew one of the fellows at the door. He used to be an FFA teacher in Oklahoma. And so I told him, I said, "I got worked over pretty good." And so he said, "You did?" And I said, "Yes." So he came back a few minutes. He said, "He might have worked you over, but he gave you a 50,
Oh.
So I could probably talk my way out of most anything I misplaced pretty good. So
when you say worked you over, just making you defend the scores that you had come up with?
Yes. And maybe he did. Maybe they did to a lot of the boys too. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But it just seemed like to me that, man, I gave my reasons. I'm not going to renege on them. This is the way I saw it.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd say, "Are you sure about that?" And I'd say, "I'm sure."
Mm-hmm. So you really had to be certain and confident then.
Yes. And then the big thing was we had a wreck going up there right outside of in Indiana. We turned in the wrong lane, and a Greyhound bus hit us and pretty well tore up the rig.
What were y'all traveling in?
Then they called them old station wagons.
Huh.
Of course, there were 7 of us,
Mm-hmm.
8 of us actually in this. And we were loaded, so it was a good thing we just slid when he hit us. We just slid, but it knocked all the rear windows out.
Oh.
So, and we didn't get it fixed before we left. We want to leave Chicago when it's pretty cold. And Dave Garraway's show, I think it was Good Morning America, was it, or whatever. And anyway, Dave Garraway, which most people today wouldn't know, but he was the star of that. He wanted me to stay and be on their show.
On their TV program?
2 or 3 mornings.
Mm-hmm.
And So Mr. Bratcher cut a deal with that station or affiliate, whatever it was, to buy me a ticket home on the train.
Oh.
If I stayed.
Mm-hmm.
And so they did that. So that gave everybody in my hometown a thrill when they turned,
Oh, yes.
for a couple, 3 mornings.
Uh-huh.
I'd be up there. They'd have the grand champion steer and of the international, and I would tell the public what I saw and did about it.
And that was a national TV program. What was the name of the person? Dave?
It was Dave Garraway.
Oh, okay.
He was the shining star. Then, of course, TV wasn't too old at the time.
Mm.
And what is it? There's 2 TV shows, Good Morning America and something else today, and I can't remember which one he was on.
Okay.
But anyways.
So what was that experience like?
Yeah. Well, it was pretty neat. They'd bring that shorthorn steer in and walk him around, and I'd tell him why he was the best steer in the show,
Mm-hmm.
He was the wrong color to me. He was a shorthorn, and I was used to Angus, but I kept my cool and
Mm-hmm.
did it anyway.
Uh-huh.
But it was quite an experience, and then on the way home, some of the professors was riding on the same train, and Dr. Walters, who had been my meets coach, he said, well, why don't we go back and get our master's degree and be on my meets team now?
Oh.
And I told him, I said, Dr. Walters, I got to see if I can do anything with what I got before I go back in and try to get my master's. It always kind of bothered me. People went right straight through school and didn't have any practical experience out there in the real world. And I've had plenty of practical experience now.
How many years now?
It's been since 52. So,
Since 1952.
So, well, I graduated in 53, so
Mm-hmm.
actually, 54 years. Something like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you still feel like you're learning
Every day.
every day?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I read a lot, attend a lot of meetings, and when I quit learning, I'll be through.
Okay.
And things have really changed too.
Well, what are 2 or 3 things that have just really changed in that period of time in particular?
Well, the type of livestock's absolutely changed. Then, and kids get tickled when I tell them this, but then it was the shortest, fattest, whatever it was, whether it was a barra or a steer, they had to be fat.
Mm-hmm.
Today, we don't want all that fat.
Mm-hmm.
So the type of animal's completely changed. The terminology's completely changed. Now, they're all meat animals. They've always been for the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
but we got them too little. Then they were way too little. A 950-pound steer was a big steer. Now we got them up to 1,500 pounds. Economics have driven that. And but I look back, and it was a good change. We went overboard. Back in the 70s, we had them way, way too tall and not enough meat in them. And today we're kind of getting back in the middle, but it's taken 50 years to kind of get to where people look at the efficiency of the animal and how good a carcass he hangs up and all. And the carcasses have changed because, the meat packing industry and everything else has driven some of that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. One of the things, I've never really been around livestock judging at all, and I don't really understand the process of that. So you mentioned that at Christmas time that you had to go back to school early to get ready for the shows and things. So what were you doing when you said that you were having to go to the barns and prepare? What exactly did that involve or entail when you went over and you were preparing? Were you looking at animals and practicing things, or what's that like?
Well, what they do in these judging contests, we have four steers, 4 heifers, 4 barras, 4 wethers, whatever. The steers are usually lined up. The barras will have numbers on them. The lambs are usually lined up left to right. You always judge from the rear, left to right.
Mm-hmm.
And the object is to select that animal, whether it be a meat animal or for breeding. And of course, you want a heifer to look like a heifer, very feminine. You want a steer to look like a steer, and different qualities. Say just in the cattle, but same's true in the lambs or pork. Either one is you want a heifer to look like a heifer and a steer to look like a steer, or a bull to look like a bull to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And they have different attributes, or different finishes you want on them. You gotta have a heifer that looks real feminine, looks like she's gonna have a good udder on her. She's got a good set of legs on her, got some heart girth on her and some thickness. She's got to be feminine, but still she's got to carry enough beef qualities about her.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to do, and then the main thing, I think about anybody can have an eye for cattle. I mean, not exactly, but you kind of learn. But then it was given the reasons. The reasons you had to stand up before a judge and say, I place this class 1, 2, 3, 4 because I like number 1, and so forth. Mm-hmm. And then you had to say what was wrong with that calf, and then what you liked about it, and then say number 2, I placed it second, even though I realized she was a little more feminine than the heifer that I placed above her, but because of different things, why you placed her second, and go on down the line. So it's kind of like playing football or basketball or anything else. It's a training deal, and you had to get in shape for it.
Hmm.
And so I think back now how some of the judging was going on, and my goodness, it wouldn't be political correct today. We weren't winning all the sheep classes. We were getting beaten. And Mr. Bratcher asked Dr. Darlow to come in, because Dr. Darlow, when he coached the team, his teams always won the sheep. And so he blindfolded all of us. Mm-hmm. And you judge sheep, particularly the wethers, mainly by feel, because they've got wool on them. You can't tell what they look like. Mm-hmm. So you have to do it with your hands. He blindfolded us, and he always used to cave. And if you're going down through there feeling this lamb, and if you didn't have your fingers right, if you can't tell anything by the end of your fingers, you got to use your hand back like that. Mm-hmm. He'd just take his cane and whack. Whack them pretty good. And we got so we was winning. Before you get whacked. I never got whacked, but I happened to have to do pretty good in the lambs all the time anyway. But I got to thinking, that wouldn't work today, would it?
No.
It'll make a judger out of it.
I bet it would.
Get them to handling the lambs right. So, but that's what it is. Today it's altogether different. I mean, they're looking for. Well, I say that we've always had the same intentions, but I guess you go through different things. But today I think we're getting back to the kind of cattle that. In hogs and all that we really need.
The emphasis maybe changed a little.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But then I believe during the Second World War they used a lot of that tallow to make explosives or something. Mm-hmm. And of course that was one reason they had fat. Mm-hmm. But then when there's no market for fat, mm-hmm. and then the health issues come along and everything.
Right.
You changed all that up. But the cattle were too little, and then they got them too long and tall, mm-hmm. and took the meat out. Now we're kind of getting back to the right kind of cattle. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad I got to witness all that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, it's been a really interesting ride.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, when you judge them, and there's 4 of them there, are you allowed to have a tape measure or anything, or you just have to strictly eyeball it? And are you comparing that group of 4 to each other as well as looking at them individually too?
Yeah. You got to compare them, and on the market cattle or mm-hmm. sheep or pork, you can handle. You don't ever have pork because you can see them, but you can handle the lambs and you can handle the steers.
So you can go up and touch them
mm-hmm.
and look at size and things like that.
The top and all that.
Okay. Uh-huh.
But on the breeding stock, you don't. You just look. Mm-hmm. And we always said judge cattle from the side views, like what I was always told. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And of course you gotta see that the cattle or whatever species you're working on. That they're functional. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter how good a carcass they hang up if they can't go out there and have a calf by themselves and get up and nurse it, have mothering and all that. Mm-hmm. So all that works into mm-hmm. it. So yeah.
And so would it be different breeds at the shows, or would you focus on one or two breeds in particular?
No, you never knew
Okay.
what you was going to have. I mean, you'd always have a class of Angus or Herefords. They never put Hereford and Angus in together.
Mm-hmm.
You know. Then we talked about the three breeds. Then it was Hereford, Angus, and Shorthorns. And of course, today it's a lot different. There's a lot more breeds.
Mm-hmm.
I remember at Fort Worth we had some Brahmas. None of us had ever seen a Brahma. I mean, that was completely, new to us. In Chicago, we had to judge draft horses.
Oh, I bet that was interesting.
Well, it really
Draft
was,
horses.
because all they had at Oklahoma A&M at the time was one old horse that pulled a manure cart.
Oh.
And we never really. And
Uh-huh.
so I think the first ones we looked at were at Cornell, Indiana, at Purdue, and then at the University of Illinois. We saw some on our way to Chicago to judge, and Mr. Bratcher said, just don't get smart about them. Look at the big points, and he said, because if you try to get too technical, not knowing anything, well, you really get in trouble. So the Canadian boys will be up there and know what they're doing. They'll beat us. And so we had a class of Percheons, and I didn't have any idea what I was looking at really, but I had to get way back to see their weathers and all because they're so big,
Mm-hmm.
And I got in there and did reasons. I'll never forget this guy said, well, what about the ears and the eyes on those horses? I thought, they each had two, that was what was going on in my mind. Each had two. And I thought, I wonder what he's looking. So I just gambled a little bit.
Uh-huh.
I thought, I really like the eye on this. It's a little brighter and bigger, and then I told him the ears were sharper, a little shorter and a little sharper ears. And I was second international contest on horses.
Oh.
But I wouldn't say I knew anything about them. I just got real lucky, I guess. So anyway,
Oh, that's good.
But I think the judging is really good for young people because you have to make quick decisions. You have to stand by your decisions and kind of know what you're doing and go in there and face that old boy that you've been told is the meanest man in the world and knows more about cattle than anybody and all those. So it was quite an experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then, so were you getting individual points? The people on the team, each person on the team would do their judging and they would earn points. Then would those points go into a team total?
Yes,
too?
yeah. Our team total, and then they'd have individuals, the top 10 individuals,
Mm-hmm.
and then the top 10 teams, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you quite often placed pretty high individually?
Well, I was pretty lucky, yeah.
Pretty lucky. No, I think you earned it. You worked hard to get that. Okay. Where the cattle that you all practiced with at OAMC, and you went to the livestock barns, I guess. So were there different groups of cattle coming in and out, or were you seeing the same cattle over and over again?
They varied them, they had quite a few cattle up there, and they'd bring us in a class of steers and lambs and all. But then, after you made the travel team, but before you ever selected the team, though, it got down to about, 12 or 15 of us, maybe 20, I don't know. We would go to farms around there. We'd go to Tulsa quite often to work out of that Angus outfit and to Turner Ranch down at Sulphur, Oklahoma, and we made a lot of trips like that.
Mm-hmm. And with Dr. Bratcher, when you were practicing and you go in and look at that group, then were you coming and telling him what you saw, and was he trying to, I guess, grill you like he knew the judges were going to do when you were actually in competitive situations?
Well, we had other people. We had other professors that we gave reasons to there locally, and then graduate students. It wouldn't all be just Mr. Bratcher.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And were you enrolled in a class as being on the livestock judging team? I'm sure that must have taken a lot of time.
Well, it took a lot of time. No, there's no credit given or anything. Yeah.
It was just...
That was extra. Now, your freshman and sophomore years, you did have classes that it wasn't called a judging class. It's just like 101 or something like that. But that was part of it. You go out and because they wanted all the kids, whether they made judging team or not, to
learn how to look
Yeah.
at the animals
Yeah,
and
right,
everything.
yeah,
Okay.
But it was it's very interesting.
Well, it is. I'm learning things I didn't know about
Okay.
about the
But
process.
Oklahoma A&M Oklahoma State now has always had a good judging team. I mean, it's recognized. We were told when I was on the team, go get Ohio, go Kansas State, get Texas A&M, get K-State. I guess it was. That was the three we were to go get. Then one of the professors moved to Kentucky and was judging, and we were added Kentucky to our list.
Oh.
So it doesn't matter. And the worst thing about it, we were second in Chicago as a team, and Cornell University of New York slept in there, and I don't know how they slept in there, but they did this as a team. But I had a good day, so anyways.
What did you wear when you were in the competitive situations?
Well,
When you traveled?
that's funny. All the boys had to wear snap brim hats. I mean, Mr. Bratcher wore a silver belly snap brim hat, and all the boys had to wear snap brims.
What do you mean by snap brim?
Well, you know how a cowboy hat is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the brim was not big, but it wasn't really real small either, but turned down.
Oh, the front was turned down.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
That designated you from Oklahoma State.
Oh, really?
And the boys all had to wear dress pants and a jacket.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there were other girls on other teams, particularly from the Northeast in Canada. They all wore skirts. I did not. I told Mr. Bratcher, I said, I don't know what any other girls would wear, but I'm going to wear pants.
Mm-hmm.
I said, when I lean over to judge those lambs and all, I'm not going to be worried about how I'm squatting down to be a lady at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, yes, you are to wear. You are to wear. So I wore dress pants and a nice shirt and a jacket. Yeah.
And you had to buy your own clothes for.
Oh, yeah, sure.
for
We had to pay our way.
Oh, you did?
Yes, we didn't have to buy the gasoline
Mm-hmm.
or, furnish the car.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody had to pay their own expenses, yeah.
Hmm.
And I had we went out for dinner the night before the deal. That was one of Mr. Bratcher's saying, let's go out and relax. Let's don't get uptight about things.
Mm-hmm.
And we went out for dinner. And the boys said, we're going to buy you a big orchid if you win this thing tomorrow. I popped off and said, I'll buy you all steak dinner following. So I got my orchid, and when we got back to OSU, we all went out and had a steak dinner. But they didn't think they was going to buy an orchid. I didn't think I was going to buy a steak dinner. So it was just a really great day for me. Yeah.
And that was the Chicago
International.
Chicago International. That would have been in 1952. 1952.
Uh-huh.
And what month of the year?
It's in November.
In November.
We had Thanksgiving dinner in St. Louis, Missouri. On
Oh.
our way up there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And was that your highest achievement?
Yeah.
Personally.
Chicago International was the biggie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I thought I had a pretty good day. And going back to the hotel that evening, Mr. Bratcher told me, he said, you had a good day? And I said, no, I didn't. I said, when they gave the officials, I said, Mr. Bratcher, I didn't do very good. I didn't have any busts, but I had some switches. And
What do you mean by that?
Okay. Say I placed them 1, 2, 3, 4.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe 2, 1, 4, 3.
Mm.
Or put the 2 in the middle, switch them, whatever, from the official.
Mm.
And so, anyway, only subway I guess I've ever ridden in my life was going out to the stockyards. And that day that we were going out for the awards, and he said, you're going to be in the top 10. And I said, I don't think so, Mr. Bratcher. He said, I think you are. He said, news leaks a little bit. He said, you're going to be in the top 10. So I thought, great. So they start at 10 and go down. And we were all sitting at the table, and they got down to 3. And my name hadn't been called. And he reached over and he said, I'd rather for you to be last than be second.
What did he mean by that exactly?
He just didn't want second, Whoever remembers second, So close and not,
Yeah, just kind of the heartbreak, I guess, a little bit of it.
And so they called out second. And my name won. And I said, I'm sorry, Mr. Brusher. I let you down. About that time, they announced my name. And the bunch went crazy.
Did you feel like it was a historic moment at the time?
I didn't know. No, I didn't know until everybody grabbed me up and started, this, that, and the other, And Dr. Darlow came right on over, and he was one of those that was, like I said, he was a gruff guy. A lot of kids are scared of him, but he was always good to me. But he's gruff. I mean, he snatched the boy off the team at KC, Kansas City, for a deal, and I thought, man, he snatched up pretty quick. And he said, have you called your daddy? And I said, well, I haven't got out of here yet. He said, you go call your daddy right now.
Oh.
But it was quite historic. They made it that way. I always laugh. Sunday morning, that was on Saturday, and Sunday morning, I got on the elevator. And of course, then they still had that stool in there and an operator that ran all the elevators, And on that stool, the Chicago World, I think it is, anyway, the newspaper up there. The headlines was Society Dame killed in my picture. And I thought, what in the world's going on? And then on the front page, the Chicago Sunday paper. It was a lot of, and it is written up, but Walter Winchell, you wouldn't know him, but he was the radio commentator at the time, and it made all the New York papers, and I still have all those.
Do you?
People put some. Yeah, it was a historic moment but I wasn't concerned with it at the time. Didn't realize what it was going to, even for the school, I think it did something. So. And it's something that's carried on all these 50 some odd years. People still, I think that's what gave me a lot of insight to some things that I've been able to accomplish or has fallen to me or whatever is, that was the breakthrough, I think.
Yeah, I can see that. And I think sometimes there's opportunities around. And people may or may not see them, but you have to be willing to step up and follow through with them, and go for them.
Yeah, I just didn't know it couldn't be done. I mean, it's like some other things I've done. I've always said I wasn't smart enough to look at the other side of the picture. I just said, let's do it. So anyways, and that was kind of, I think that's helped me all these years. I mean, it's been a long, long time ago, but people still refer to it as, of course, since then, I think, it went a long time, but I think some girls have won it since then.
So that was your senior year then, or your junior year?
It was my senior year.
It was your senior year. So how was the rest of your senior year after that big defining moment in November? You still had another semester of school, and did you have other contests then?
No, that
was the last one.
Yeah, Then that's in November and January. Well, the juniors, that's when they come on.
Oh, okay.
So yeah.
So were you helping them that last semester, or did you feel like at loose ends because you weren't getting ready for competitions anymore?
Well, I had a little free time. It's the first time I hadn't taken 18 hours.
Oh.
I took 18 hours. And that was another thing when I went up there to enroll. Of course, I was a little old girl and didn't know anything. And my dad took me up there. And it's funny, I think about all the things kids take to school with them now, It takes 2 trailers and pickup to get a kid up there. And I had a sister that went with me, and I brought a little baby brother and sister, and we all went up there and all the things we needed out of that one car. We sat on and my dad said later, he said, I didn't say that, but he did. I said, yeah, you did, Dad, and I thought you meant it. He said, if you're not tough enough to stay, keep going north.
Oh.
And but Hilton Briggs was assistant head of the department at the time. Dr. Hilton Briggs went on to South Dakota after that, and he was my advisor, and I thought all these other boys just had an advisor, so well, here I had an assistant then, and I thought, man, I ranked pretty high. Well, he put me in 18 hours that first semester. I had entomology and zoology and chemistry, English, had 18 hours, and it almost got me. It almost got me. But every semester they put me in 18 hours, and but I made it. And so when I was in Chicago, he was in South Dakota at the time. I think he was Dean of Agriculture up there. And he asked Mr. Pratcher if I could ride a taxi with him one day after the judging and to go out there. And said yes. And he said, I've got a confession to make. And I said, what's that, Dr. Briggs? And he said, I was to get rid of you. And he said, I just want to apologize to you.
Oh, my.
And I said, that's okay, I made it.
Yeah. So did you feel that way at all or did you have any idea that?
No.
Well, maybe that was a good thing.
I think it was. I think it was a good thing. Yeah, yeah. Because I had one goal. I didn't care if I ever had a date. I didn't care about anything. I wanted to make that judging team, and I knew I had to make my grades to do that. And I had a lot of help. At first semester, but at midterm, first semester. I think I had about a 25 or 30 in chemistry, something like that. I got put in with the medical students and the vet students because they ran out of room. And so instead of getting in ag chemistry, I got put in. And I had one little general course in science in high school. That's all I had.
Oh, goodness.
I had no more idea what this talking about and spooked, And I went to I can't call his name right now, but I'll always be grateful to him. He was my chemistry teacher. And I went to him, I said, don't look like I'm going to make it. He said, yeah, you are. He said, there's enough boys dropped out of ag chemistry that we've been doing ag chemistry. He taught both. He said, well, just put you in ag chemistry. I'm going to wipe the slate clean, and what you make second half of this semester is going to be your grade. And I can't say I learned it, but I memorized it. And I got 13 hours of B in chemistry, and I don't think that I know what H2O is. That's about all I do. But I was always be grateful to him. I had him all in organic and all the other courses. I had to have a tutor. I found a lady that would help me. But
was she at the university? She was.
Yeah, I think she ran the lab, Neurohr chemistry lab. And I put out word I needed a tutor, and she helped me. Yeah.
You were really determined. If you had the initiative to know that you needed a tutor and you found one, and when you felt like your grades were in trouble a little bit, you went and talked to the professor about it, and some students don't do that. So that just shows, I think, your determination to make it.
Like I say, I had a goal.
Yes.
And I feel sorry for the kids that don't have a goal. I see a lot of kids, say, well, I'm going to school, I don't know what I want to go to school for.
That's pretty common now, I think.
Yeah. And so I've always felt real fortunate that I knew what I wanted to do. And
what did you envision going to school? Your goal was to be on the livestock judging team. And what did you envision doing with your degree? Your family had land. Did you think you would go back to your family land?
No, folks wasn't big enough for that, and it's mostly farmers. Well, I went ahead and got a minor in ag journalism. My major's in Animal Husbandry, and a minor in journalism because I thought I could get a job in the ag journalism field somewhere. And so that's what I did. And I'm assuming you're talking about my senior year, my second semester. I worked over there in the ag journalism lab quite a bit, helping write stories for, the papers, extension papers and all that.
Did you enjoy that?
Yes, yeah, and it's helped me, we put out a little newsletter here and do different things. But the American Angus Association was headquartered in Chicago at the time. And so after the Chicago deal and all things began to open up, and Lloyd Miller, who later became executive vice president of the American Angus Association, but then he was head of public relations. He offered me a job in Chicago with the Angus Association. And I just couldn't see myself living in Chicago, and it was at the stockyards and all, and I thought, man, you go through a pretty bad part of town to get into the stockyards and all. And so I was thinking about that, and then I went to Fort Worth to the stock show, and right after that, and Texas Angus Association offered me a job as field representative. A lot less money, but it was in Texas and not that far from home and a lot better part of town. So I accepted that. And that's the only paid job I've ever had in my life. I worked there for nearly 2 years.
So that was a more comfortable environment, I'm sure,
more
in many ways.
Environment.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Oh, let's talk about the block and bridle team a little bit.
Okay.
Brought the yearbook along, and there was a picture in there, and the first thing that struck me was how many students there were in block and bridle.
Oh, yes.
And did you join? Now tell me could you join as a freshman, block and bridle?
No.
Okay.
I think you had to be a sophomore or a junior, I believe. That was another thing. When I started making good grades, I couldn't belong to Alpha Zeta.
What's that?
That's agricultural fraternity for good grades.
Oh, okay.
But I made it, but I couldn't because I was a girl. They never had a girl. So I didn't make that, and they never had a girl in block and bridle either. And I suppose a lot of discussions went on or something. But anyway, I got initiated in block and bridle and went to all their meetings, and I guess I was reported in my senior year. But it was interesting. I'll have to say, I can never say that I was mistreated by anybody, or I thought I was. I just thought everybody treated me equal, and people always saying, "Are you a feminist?" And I said, "No." I never even want people to go there with me that way. I figure if I know my business well enough, you'll be treated equal and be paid equal. It's those that ain't quite there yet. And so I always figured if I went through everything like the initiation and I asked them, they said, this is going to be a tough one for you. And I said, whatever. I can handle it. And I thought I handled it pretty good till I came into the dorm, and the dorm mother met me and asked me what had happened to me.
And this was after you'd gone through initiation?
Yes.
Oh, do you want to talk about that at all?
On this interview?
Well, if you want to. If not, that's fine.
Well, it was a boys' initiation, and it's pretty tough. But I made it through. I just came in looking pretty bad, that's all. But some of the boys brought me home. That was another thing. I was in there with all these veterans, and I had zoology lab. This is getting off of block and bridle, but I just think it's something that needs to be said. I had zoology lab from 7 to 9. My first semester up there, I went from 8 to 5 to 7 to 9. Trying to get in those 18 hours, I had a lot of labs. I didn't know anything could ever happen to a little girl. And I had to walk quite a ways over to the stout dorm. And 2 big old boys, they looked like these pro wrestlers or something. They came up to me at the end of my first night of class in zoology, and they said, "Where do you live?" And I told them. They said, "You don't have a car, do you?" And they said, "Well, you don't have any business being on this campus by yourself at night." And those 2 fellows, I found out later, they were brothers, they were veterans, and they walked me home every night that semester. I never, I think they were even married guys,
Mm-hmm.
but they just took it upon themselves, being the only girl I did not need to be. And I think that says something for the school and for that time and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I hope it's the same way. I don't know.
I don't know. I can't answer to that
Yeah.
at all. I would hope so too, but yeah, I don't know. That's really nice.
I mean, but that's just the way it was up there.
Mhm.
It was a nice school.
Mm-hmm. Okay, today is Saturday, November 17th, 2007, and this is the second part of my interview with Minnie Lou Ottinger Bradley. And we're at her home in her ranch office for the Bradley 3 Ranch at Memphis, Texas. And thank you again for letting me come and conduct the interview with you today.
You're stretching my memory.
Okay. Well, I'll have to be a little careful about that, I guess. Okay. Let's start this part of the interview and let me get your impressions when you first went to the campus at OAMC. Did your dad take you to school and drop you off?
Yes, my whole family went up. I had a sister that was going to go to be a freshman with me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had a younger brother and sister by quite a few years. And I remember the 6 of us went up there in one 4-door Chevrolet car with all of our belongings that we were going to need. And it was a great time, I don't guess I'd ever been to the campus before. And never been on a Southwestern at Weatherford was just a real small school at the time, and I'd been by there because we lived right close to Weatherford. But it was quite an experience. Probably I had no idea what I was getting into, but it was a thrilling time. Seems as if kids from Hydro had a habit of not being able to stay away from home or get weaned, as I call it, or whatever. And then always come back to Weatherford to school. And as I told you earlier, before we left, my dad said, if you're not tough enough to make it, just keep going north. I'll never forget that. And he didn't think he ever said it, but he sure did. He put the fear of God in me anyway.
Was that your first time that you'd ever been on campus? Or
Yes.
It
yes.
was.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what did you think when you saw Theta Pond and the buildings and everything?
Thought it was a beautiful place. It was just scary. It was scary for me. Of course, everybody walked then, or for the most part, everybody walked, and of course, we didn't have a car either. I remember everybody saying you can always tell a freshman by the way they look up and around, and I thought that's silly, but I'm sure that I could be identified pretty easy first few years.
Trying to find your way to classes and things.
One of the funny experiences then, I don't know how it is now, then you had to either take pass swimming, girls had to pass swimming, or have a doctor's saying that they physically couldn't swim, or you had to take swimming lessons. I'd never been in a swimming pool in my life. I was scared to death of water. Still am scared to death of water. And I'll never forget, I can still see that old green tank suit with your number across the front. And it was a long ways from that. And I can't remember that building that had the swimming pool in it at the time. It was something I wanted to forget really quick. But I had ag economics in the top of the dairy building, next class. And I always went into that class with those boys with my hair just ripping colder. And sometimes it'd have ice on my hair when I got over there. And I thought it was going to keep me from graduating. I didn't think I was ever going to pass swimming. all the science courses I took, swimming was going to keep me from graduating.
Oh, goodness.
So it was, I think, I'm sure, Student Union Building opened that year. I'm just pretty sure.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a big deal. I mean, it was just a really nice deal. And of course, I slept on the first bed in the bottom floor, can't remember the room number, and what we call a new hall, because they were about a year or so later before they named it Stout Hall.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it was on the end of the campus at the time, so I had to walk everywhere I went. Was a pretty good walk.
Who was your roommate?
my sis.
Mm-hmm.
My sis, she was sick a year in grade school, and that put us together. One of the interesting things is then you didn't have to take any pre-test before you got up there. You took a test after you got there and got enrolled. She was salutatorian of the class that I was in, and I was in a lot of other things, but I sure went at the top of the class, and I depended on her a lot. She got me through class because I never was a good student in high school, and I remember on Sunday I would say to myself, 5 days and I get off too. 5 days and I get off too. But I wanted to go to college. I wanted to be on the junior team.
Mm-hmm.
And we took the test, and they came to her and asked her if she would keep it quiet. They said, your sister will never make it through college. Her score was so low, we don't think she'll make it. And I beat her every semester we were up there. And I always kid her. She was home studying nursery rhymes. She was in child development in elementary ed. And I was in agriculture taking all these science courses. And it always tickled me to death because she went up there to have a good time and I went up there with a mission, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So we all laughed about that. But they was really surprised that I did as good as I did. But I had a reason, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I've told a lot of kids this, that, you know, if you have a dream, you can do it. It doesn't matter if you've got a lot of natural abilities and a lot of things or not. If you want to work at it hard enough, you can make it.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that too.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, but it was a great experience for us.
Mm-hmm.
And I was up there at a great time with all those veterans. Most of them were pretty serious about getting an education, but they kind of ran the college too. It was kind of fun.
Do you remember anything about who the president was, or if you ever saw the president out on campus or anything?
Two things. Dr. Blizzard was killed. He was president.
Dr. Bennett?
Bennett, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He was president, and then he got killed in Ethiopia, I think, in a plane crash.
Mm-hmm.
And then Dr. Wilhelm, who was head dean of agriculture, he took over. I do know Dr. Wilhelm because he was the dean of agriculture when I went up there,
Mm-hmm.
and he had a son just a year younger than me. And that's how I got through entomology, was Richard Wilhelm was in the same class with me. Richard helped me get through two courses, entomology and ag economics, because I could not see, you know. The teachers always said in economics, depends on conditions, and I always thought everything had to be yes or no. But depending on conditions, but Richard was a real smart student, and so he helped me in that. He called me up one day in entomology, and we had to have all these bugs. He said, you got them all? I said, heavens no, and some I've got are 20 years old probably, you know. And he said, well, Dad's president of college. I said, yeah, I know that. And Richard said, well, I've got permission from the poultry guy. I said, I went out there and said, you and I are going to raid all the poultry houses and see if we can find the mites and the lice and all this kind of stuff. And had a lot of individual hen houses at that time for experiments. And I thought, oh, kingdom, you know, we'd go in those houses and those old hens would just squawk like everything. And those guys would come out and see that it was Richard, so they'd leave us alone. And we got all of our mites and lice. So, yeah, I remember who the president was. And fact is, Richard went on to be a PhD in genetics and started the EPDs for the American Angus Association while he was at Iowa State.
Oh.
And when I was elected president of the American Angus Association, he escorted me to the stage where he had the night before been inducted into the Sirloin Club there. And the other fella was a classmate of mine. And and he did.
Mm-hmm.
And Dave McMahon from Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
No. But those two escorted me to the stage when I was elected president.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I have a lot of, that meant a lot to me,
Mm-hmm.
those two guys, yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned off camera, I think, about how your class was an especially strong class
Right.
academically.
Right.
You want to say anything about that on the camera, in addition to what you just said?
Well, it just seems like so many, I'm like on my judging team, I think I'm the only one that didn't go ahead and get an advanced degree. And And I really haven't kept up with those fellas. I know Jack McCroskey at one time was in, I believe, I can't think of his, Idaho, I had the department and out at Texas Tech and then wound up in Georgia. But then there were just so many of them that went on to do good things in the field of, well, animal husbandry mainly in beef cattle business. So, yeah, I was real pleased with a lot of them. Yeah.
And you ran into them from time to time then over the course of your career in ranching.
I see a lot of them at the National Cattlemen's Association and all that.
That's good. Any other memories of particular buildings on campus? Was the library finished and new about that time?
Yes, I had English in, was it Williams Hall? The old building by the fire?
The turrets and everything?
Yeah. I had English in that building. And of course, Animal Husbandry Department, I think that building is gone now. I think they have a new Animal Science Department.
I think there's some improvements in line for the agriculture building, animal science building. They tore the dairy building down. I don't know if you knew that this past year. They tore it down, and so
I never took any dairy courses, but I had courses in it. Ag-econ in there. Yeah.
Were your courses pretty much kind of in one general area of campus, or were they far away?
They were scattered. You know, from was it Williams Hall? Is that what they call it?
Williams.
Williams Hall. From Williams Hall, clear across, diagonally across the campus. Yeah. You know, I think we had 10 minutes between classes or something, and sometimes I really had to
hurry.
Had to hurry to get there. Yeah.
What did you wear? What did the women wear to classes?
Most of them wore dresses, skirts. Some wore slacks part of the time, and it's according to what I was doing. If I was going to have judging, you know, right there in class, I'd wear slacks. You didn't wear jeans much. It's a slack deal. But most of the girls wore skirts with anklets and, you know, what do you call the two-tone shoes, the Oxfords or whatever it was, saddle Oxfords.
I think so.
Yeah. A lot of things have changed. Of course, the boys' dress has changed considerably. And I mentioned that to you earlier about all the guys dressed so nice.
Did you have laundry facilities at Stout that you could do your laundry?
No, don't think so. Seemed like we could wash. Well, let me see. I got to think about this. I think we could wash them. You know, I think we could. Yeah. I'm pretty sure they put that in. We all had an ironing board. Everybody did their own ironing at that time. You know? So, but
what was the food like? Well,
of course, coming from a family farm where folks raised everything, and mother didn't do anything but cook and wash and iron for everybody. I thought it was horrible. But I'd always had a weight problem, so I went home looking better than I had. And my sis, who roomed with me, she put on a lot of weight. But what I really remember is eggplant. I'd never seen an eggplant, and I haven't eaten one of those yet. That was the awfulest looking thing I ever saw in my life, and I'd never even heard of. But we survived, you know. But then there was a cafeteria in each hall. Down in the basement is, you know, and I don't think it's that way now. And we didn't have any choice. I mean,
you had to eat in your hall.
You ate in your hall, and you ate what they put before you, which you didn't have any selection. I mean, you could say, no, I don't want that, but there wasn't any choices like there are today. And what we always liked is when they brought in the hotel and restaurant management kids. Seemed like they fed us better than I don't know if they spent more money or what, but it was okay, I'm sure. And then we had a little canteen in the bottom, in the basement, where at night, at certain hours, just certain hours, you could go get something to drink or some cookies. So, anyways, a lot stricter than, of course, it was all divided then. I don't know if they've got co-ed dorms now.
Yes.
Oklahoma State and all.
They do.
Then we had some co-ed dorms, but they weren't supposed to be. We had guys coming through the window. You know? I had some experiences with my neighbors. Those gals, they were something else.
Oh.
And we were supposed to keep our mouths shut, you know.
Oh.
So, and they'd have panty raids and all that kind of stuff. I guess they still do. I don't know.
I don't think they do that anymore.
Oh, they don't do that
No.
anymore. Okay.
No, I've heard about walkouts before. Yeah. I've heard some stories about walkouts. They don't do that anymore. But I guess that was a pretty big deal back then.
Well, with those veterans, I'll tell you a little story. Dr. Eichenberry was the botany teacher. And he was something else anyway. When he shut the door when class started, and this veteran didn't quite make it from one class to the other, he knocked on the door. And Dr. Eichenberry said, class has started, I don't open the door for any boy. And he stuck his fist through that thing.
Oh.
And he walked in and grabbed that professor and said, don't ever shut this door on a veteran again. And Dr. Eichenberry left that door open from then.
Oh my goodness.
But we were always having something like that.
Oh, uh-huh.
Those veterans were, but they'd come to your rescue too. You know?
Mm-hmm.
They were good guys.
Mm-hmm.
They had a mission and they weren't going to take anything off anybody. But yeah, of course, I was pretty wide-eyed about that time too.
I'm sure I would have been.
But there's a lot of good things. I always admired the fact that the campus always looked beautiful. The horticulture kids, I guess, kept it that way. But when one flower quit blooming, another one was set in the place. And I can't remember it being trashed or anything like. I just think everybody had a pride. And so, I guess the big hangout was what I said, Swims, I believe was the name of it, upstairs, and had Nickelodeon, and kids go up there and drink Cokes and dance and what have you. Yeah. But you walk to town, I'd say 3/4 of them walk to town and go to the movies and Friday night or Saturday night or something. And then I believe there was a theater right across from Swims too.
Leachman's, maybe? I've heard of Leachman's Theater, I think.
I don't remember the name, but I know there's a theater right there. I was thinking
I'm not
it's
sure.
campus, but I'm not sure.
Well, there might have been a campus. There were more than one, I know
There was
that. Yeah, I think there was more than one theater in town.
Yeah, there's one downtown, and I don't remember the name of it, but that was a Friday night because you didn't want to be out that late. Of course, then you had hours. Freshmen and sophomores had to be in by 8 o'clock.
Oh.
And Friday night seemed like it was 11 o'clock, maybe 12 o'clock on Saturday night. I'm not for sure.
Do you remember being around the house mom? Was she an imposing figure in the house, and did people? Was she kind of a mother figure, or was she more of a disciplinarian type figure? Or
Well, I think it was according to the girls. When she'd come down the hall and said, "Open those doors." I always got along with her because the boys I went with were all in agriculture. And most of them very, very polite. And I could be 10 minutes late, and it was okay. Another girl could be 10 minutes late, and it wasn't. Because these boys took off their hats and swept the floor with them. How are you? Miss Green, I believe was her name. How are you? Blah, 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 And she just thought those were the greatest guys in the world. And so she is just like you are. You just, whether she wanted to be lenient or not, she was, because she leaned toward people that was polite. But they gave us instructions then. If you were going to sit on a boy's lap in the car, when we had to double up. I forget what we had to have between us, and a whole bunch of little things like that. That kids today would say, "Oh my God, they're crazy."
Well, that was the time, I guess.
That was the time, and it wasn't all bad.
No,
wasn't all bad. I guess the worst hail storm that ever hit Stillwater maybe was up there my freshman year.
Oh, you remember that?
Oh yeah, it shattered all those tile roofs. They had all tile roofs on every building, shattered everything. I mean, it just came down and the cars, they had convertibles were real popular
Uh,
then. And we look out the window, those convertibles just beat to pieces, you know. Of course, those kids were, you know, really looked upon as something special if they had a car. But yeah, I remember that was, every building up there got, and you know, those tiles weren't as big as a pebble when it got through. And if you were outside, you got beat pretty
How
much.
big was the hail?
Oh, they're big.
Big
you know.
softball size?
Yeah,
or-
but it was just so hard and so
Oh.
much of it, you know. Yeah.
Have you ever seen any hail like that since then?
No, not that bad.
Mhm.
I've been through some hailstorms, but that's the worst.
Mhm.
And the worst energy I ever saw.
Yeah, wintertime, any bad winter storms that you remember?
No, not real bad. Well, we had some storms, but not real bad. You just put on more clothes and went to class. I can't remember them ever calling off a class.
What about any campus traditions that you remember? Homecoming? Were you were really busy with your studies and the livestock judging, and so did you participate in any of those other types of activities at all?
Not a whole lot. I went to the home games. I never did. See, the little town I came from never had a football team, so I really didn't even know about what football was all about. Basketball got pretty involved in that.
And you played basketball growing up in high school?
Yeah. And I still love girls basketball. I liked it. You know, then it was a half court deal, where you had 6 girls on team, 3 on each end, and all that. But I remember which OSU, and I was there, played Drake University, and they had the first black person, and that got to be a little nasty. And I think now how times have changed.
That was an unfortunate incident.
Yes,
OSU's sports history.
Yes, I remember. Yeah,
and people still acknowledge that, and apologies, were made, but it's one of those things. Sometimes the students don't realize the impact of actions that they take at that time.
I was at that game.
Oh, were you?
Yes.
And did you see that incident happen?
Yes, and I thought it was awful.
Yeah.
That was awful.
Yeah.
I never had been around, at Hydro. They were all just white people, and I never been around, so I had no bias or anything. But I couldn't, as a human being. And so.
Were there any international students that you were around at all?
Well, I kind of thought those from New York were international. I took one home with me once, and that didn't look go back too good. No, there were quite a few Ethiopians. There was quite a few at that time, nothing like today. But as I recall, Dr. Bennett was working pretty close with Ethiopians at that time. So there were several of those.
There was a program called the 4 Points program that he was leading.
Good.
And it was to try to establish international relations, and Ethiopia was one of the countries that they worked very strongly with.
I remember that, and I remember that, they came because they dressed a little differently and all that. And of course, then, but we had a lot of Indians. Of course, Oklahoma would have.
Yes.
But, and I had some in my classes.
But you didn't really think anything about it?
No. Well, I had more money than any of the rest of us.
Oh, did they?
Well, some of them. Yes.
Yeah. Well, their student organization started in 1930 at OSU. The Indian Student Organization did.
Oh, is that right?
I came across that in a yearbook recently, and I think that's a really interesting part of OSU's history.
The only ones I was really associated with were in the rodeo club. And they were pretty big in that. So anyways, but things have changed a lot. So.
You talked a little bit about the professors that you had in classes and with the livestock judging and animal husbandry. Do you have any other stories about faculty that were particularly supportive that we haven't already told, or who might have influenced you at all in that way?
Well, there was a lady, and I can't recall her name. I had English under her. We had to write things.
Mm-hmm.
And I never have learned how to diagram a sentence. When I was in high school, I thought that's the biggest waste of time I could figure out. You know, I thought that was a waste of time. Never. Well, probably couldn't spell too good either. And I thought, how am I going to get out of this class? And another old boy, he'd had some problems the year before, and he really liked her. He said, I'll tell you, she likes the Cowboys, and said if you put quotes around everything, she can't say anything about you, about your spelling and everything. So I learned to put all these quotes in there. She came to me one day, she said, you think all these quotes are just... But anyway, and I did find out that writing for English and writing, I did pretty good in journalism, because it was two different things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you write differently.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember that, she helped me there. And of course, then I mentioned earlier the chemistry teacher who
Right.
bent over backwards to help me.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't say all the animal science teachers did.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a professor in ag engineering. And what I know about an engine, I don't know anything. But Mr. Deltz, I believe was his name,
Mm-hmm.
and he had a cane, and he'd whack you if you read the old collie while you were in bed. He split many a paper right down the middle. And I had a difficult time in there with just, not knowing anything. But he was very nice to me. But, oh Lord, he scared more boys to death. I mean, you didn't dare open that. You couldn't have made me open that old collie up in his class. But, yeah, I would say, all the animal science people were really supportive of me.
Mm-hmm.
I think they knew I was trying.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that was the reason, I don't know. But
Were you usually the only female in your classes?
was, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And they had some trouble. They were used to all boys, and then men did not speak vulgar or cuss or anything in front of women.
Mm-hmm.
And every once in a while they'd let something slip. And that embarrassed them a lot more than it did me. They would apologize. And I said, wait a minute, I'm just another boy in this class, don't. But I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
It embarrassed me, it embarrassed them when they do it. But they're so apologetic and they're just not used to this, And so I know I put them under a lot of strain, in lots of ways, They had to watch what they were doing. But later on, I think they were all kind of proud of what I'd achieved, maybe.
I'm sure they were.
So
by your senior year, were there any other women that were coming into the programs at all?
There were two girls from Michigan that they transferred from Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and one was in agriculture,
Mm-hmm.
in animal science.
Mm-hmm.
And there was two or three that started, but they didn't last too long.
Mm-hmm.
So I was the only one that started and ended it, I guess.
Finished.
Yeah,
Like you did.
Yeah.
Okay, now this kind of leads me into just mentioning your involvement with ranch management students over the years. You've had a long involvement of working with college students in a ranch management program from TCU.
Mm-hmm.
And just if you talk a little bit about that, you must enjoy that experience of working with those students. And
Well, we really do.
Mm-hmm.
We've just had them out here for the 52nd year.
Oh.
The TCU ranch management.
Mm-hmm.
Clarendon College ranch management comes on a periodic basis.
Mm-hmm.
In West Texas, we'll bring their kids once in a while to Vernon College. We've had Colorado, some of them stop in,
Mm-hmm.
going to Fort Worth and different places.
Mm-hmm.
But the two colleges mainly that we've worked with through the years is Clarendon and TCU.
Mhm.
Very proud of our association with TCU.
Mhm.
I'm seeing a lot of those boys come through, and now I'm seeing the grandsons come through. And but we and one other ranch in South Texas, the only ones that's had them for every year they've been in existence.
Huh.
And I've seen the professors change and all that. It's a great program, and we do enjoy it. We probably learn as much from having these kids as they learn from us, and I think they keep you on your feet, keep wanting you to make you want to do better, you know. So we enjoy it, working with the young people, and that's a high class bunch of boys that come through.
Are most of them from family ranch backgrounds?
I must say they have some connection for the most part. I mean, either grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, somebody. Not all, but for the most part, yes. Most of them have a college education when they go to that class. So they're ready to, they're getting serious about learning. And very bright. Most of them all have a degree in either a law degree or business degree, finance, something like that, So they're very knowledgeable, and it gives me hope in the future. That they still want to do this, and most of them probably gonna make more money otherwise, in other places, but they still have that desire. A lot of them were raised in cities, but their folks own ranches, and I think what I failed to see, and I'm sure if I had to do it over again at 17, going to college, I'd probably do it like I did it, but it was wrong. All I wanted to do was production, beef cattle production. And we didn't have a course in finance. We didn't have a course in what's it cost, It was, you feed them this much to make them grow, or you do this and this. But there wasn't anything to say, hey, you're gonna make it public, You're gonna make it public. And so I had to learn all that when I got out. So, and now they do have, then that was before they even had ag business majors, And now, surely, they're teaching some of that along with animal science and production agriculture, because there's so much more to it than production. It's marketing. I still think most of them are pretty slack. College is pretty slack in marketing.
In marketing?
Yeah, if you say marketing, they all think of futures and options and all that. Well, there's more to it than that.
Well, like your web page, for instance.
Yeah, right,
your
yeah.
newsletters.
Of course, then there wasn't a web.
No, well, no, there wasn't.
I tell you, there was one computer on OSU and on it up there.
Oh, there was?
Yes, and it was the whole basement of the home economics building. That was it. It was kind of a punch card.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He was always sitting there scratching this little deal.
So you had to go down there and use that?
Well, no, they'd sit in the cards would be sent up to whatever
they
they needed it for.
Oh,
But that was, as far as I know, the only computer, and it must have been a humongous one.
I bet it was. I bet it was hot down there, too.
Well, we didn't even, very few even had portable typewriters,
Oh.
And we didn't have phones. I mean, you had a phone on each wing, and I think today, kids are on the phone all the time,
Did students have bicycles on campus to get around?
Yeah, some of them had bicycles, yeah. Yeah, sure did. Yeah, there's more bicycles than there were cars, probably. Yeah.
Okay, I want to ask you about when you won your award at Chicago. And I guess after you came back, you were named by Governor Johnston Murray to the honorary colonel staff. So explain that.
Well, actually, there wasn't a ceremony thing. I got a certificate. I still have the old humble thing. That's naming me an honorary colonel. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And was there one other person named besides yourself?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I have no idea.
Did they mail that to you, or did somebody? They did.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's neat. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that happened during that time. And I look back now and I don't know that I thought a lot of it at the time, but yeah. Hydro turned out for me for a big celebration. Anadarko, the county seat, they had a big deal, and different ones, And,
While you were still in college?
uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
Did they ask you to speak?
yes.
They did.
Yeah, and I wasn't a speaker. In fact, I never made a talk until I was 55.
Oh.
And I wouldn't. I escaped. I don't know exactly how I escaped, but I escaped public speaking in high school and public speaking in college. And I could get that one-on-one and give my reasons, but I couldn't. I wasn't about to get that next speech. And now I guess I'm maybe about 20 so on stage or something, but I remember very well. I was 55, and my kids, of course, gone, And at that time, we had a little old tin building for an office out here. And I was out there, and a fellow from California called me and asked me if I'd come out there and give a talk and bring us a cattle field. I told him I didn't do those things. He said, "Well, you're on the board of International Brands." I said, "I know, I talk one-on-one, but no. And for some reason, I guess good Lord speaks to you in different ways. I went in the house and sat down in an old cane bottom rocking chair. It was rocking. And I thought, is this your life now?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, man, I don't want this to be my life. I cane bottom rocking chair. And because I'm not a very big TV fan. And so I went back out there and called him. I said, if you got the guts to ask me, I'll just try to get the guts to get it. And I flew out there, and that was my first one. And I'm okay if I'm talking about cattle, I feel pretty good about that.
Mm-hmm.
But I always tell kids, that's one thing I tell them all is I'll tell them two things, if they don't tell them anything else. To be able to communicate to people. And it's mainly boys still that are young men we have here. There are some girls, and it doesn't matter. I said, whoever you marry, be sure they want to live on the ranch. Because I said, you fall in love, and you think everything's going to be rosy. And you're 50 miles from town, and she wants to live in town, and you're supposed to be running the ranch out there. I said, ain't going to work.
Mm-hmm.
I said, come find out what they like.
Mm-hmm.
And they all looked at me like, oh, you got to be kidding. But I know several had to move to town, and that's important.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's good advice.
well, they don't take it. I mean, you fall in love with whoever and all that kind of stuff, I guess. But you can't run a ranch and not live on it, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
I know you can't with $3 gas.
Good point. You told us a story over lunch about the trophy, the National Merit Trophy Award. Was that the story you were telling me about? The big livestock animal trophy, big bronze trophy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind telling that story, I thought that was an interesting one.
Well, now it's at Louisville, Kentucky. It's still the International Livestock Show, but then it was in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
When they tore down the stockyards, well, Chicago, the show had to move, and Louisville got it. But each year at the collegiate judging contest, whatever team wins it is awarded this big traveling bronze bull. And he's a heavy outfit too. And if you win it 3 times, then you get to keep it. But Oklahoma State had won it 3 times. And it was, right in the center of the trophies and everything we had up there. And that's what we all looked to, that we got to do this again.
Mm-hmm.
And one night, the engineering students got in there. They stole our bull, castrated him, and brought him back to us. And that caused quite a row on campus, I want to tell you. And I don't suppose that the engineering students and And the animal husbandry students talk to each other to this day, probably. And I don't know what's happened in all these years, but that caused. I mean, that was serious.
Oh, sure.
And it was serious, and it's vandalism.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sure those guys thought it was a big joke, but it wasn't a big joke to us.
No,
it wasn't a big joke. But I can still see that bronze bull. He was a beautiful thing. It was I don't know. He had horns. I know that and all that. And he was in the way he was positioned and everything. You know, he's a massive thing. But he came back a steer.
So was it repaired? What happened?
You know, I don't know that they ever got him repaired. Hopefully, in all these years, Oklahoma State's won 2 or 3 more.
Well, hope so.
Yeah.
So were you on the team that won that happened to?
No,
that was a previous one?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we didn't win. Our team was second that year. I happened to be top individual, but our team was second.
Did you get a trophy being top individual or a plaque or something?
I got some plaques. It's really funny. I'll show you one here in a minute. A deal somebody asked me about, and I said, it looks like something you ought to be buried with me. But now they get big buckles and all that. But I got several things like one of the big packing companies, Mr. Wilson, actually, it was Wilson Company, and at that time they had a plant in Oklahoma City. And Mr. and Ms. Wilson presented me with some things, and I think that was at Kansas City and different things. But the awards have all changed up now. But anyways, I was tickled what I got, I'll tell you.
Oh, I bet. Okay. In 1988, the OSU Department of Animal Science honored you with a Graduate of Distinction Award. Could you tell me a little bit about that experience, and did you go back to Stillwater for that?
Oh,
what was that like?
I guess that was one of the big surprises I've had when they called and told me that I'd been named. And I don't know what process they go through or anything about it. Dr. Tadashek was head of the department at the time. And I met Dr. Tadashek. He was about to graduate to get his doctorate degree at Purdue, I believe it was, when we were on our way to Chicago and we stopped there to practice on the way to Chicago a year. And he's not that much older than I am, but he was really fast in getting his education. And he came back to OSU that next year. And so, and went along for his head of the department. But anyway, he was, it was a real honor for me that night to stand up there and receive that award. Yeah, it really was. And I'm proud of it too. You see it, it's hanging in my office.
It's hanging in your office on the wall right back over there.
That's
yes.
right, yeah.
Yes. You've won a lot of other awards. Are there others that are especially meaningful to you?
Yeah, I've been really, really fortunate in a lot of things. And I've got one I'm going for that we haven't got it yet, but we're on our way. We were named the Land Stewardship and Environmental Award winner for Texas just recently. And it'll be submitted for the national honor. You know, I always said I never have a big ranch. I just wanted to make it the best and have it stocked with the best cattle. And we're kind of getting there in some ways. A few years ago, I was named the Pioneer Breeder for Improvement, Beef Cattle Improvement Association. And I've just had several things. Governor Bush at that time presented me with a wildlife and environmental steward award. So it just, you know, and then last year, inducted to the Cowgirl Hall of Fame. That was a tremendous deal, which I never considered myself a cowgirl.
You didn't?
No, I considered myself a beef cattle person.
Well, how's that different in your mind?
I always thought, I knew they took in other people than just the rodeo cowgirls. But to go up there and stand beside Sandra Day O'Connor and who I used to go pay my dime to see Dale Evans every Saturday
Yes.
night, you know.
Uh-huh.
and some of those,
Uh-huh.
that was a tremendous honor.
Uh-huh.
So I just, and then, being elected president of the American Angus Association was something I never intended to even happen. I mean, even after I got on the board, I just didn't think that was the place, and for the men to go ahead and move me up, it made me feel good.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had a lot of nice things. Really been really fortunate.
Was it difficult to, I guess, accept those leadership roles when they were presented to you, or were they presented to you at times when you were ready to be the leader of them?
Well, I enjoyed and I hope it contributed a little bit on the board.
Mm-hmm.
The American Angus Board, and I was in there during a really good time in the Angus Association. We were growing so, and number one in the nation, and all that. And I had told him I had been the oldest president. I was the furthest away from the airport.
Oh, did you have to travel a lot?
Yes,
for that role.
I didn't travel as much as a lot of them do. They told me if I take it, they wouldn't make me go a lot of places that a lot of them go to. But I drove to Oklahoma City most of the time. Kids plane, it was just easier to fly out.
And that's 3 hours or more.
Yeah.
Mm.
So, but some situations popped up, and they kept saying, "It's your time," and so it didn't make me feel good.
Mm-hmm.
And I set some different rules when I went in, and they've all kidded me about some of those rules. But,
They have?
But they said, "Remember what you said now." They told me just last week when I was at the meeting. Remember what you said? So I thought they honored me pretty much, and I hope I made a good leader. I don't know. We didn't get everything done I wanted to get done, but it's happened since. So
that's good.
Sometimes it just takes time,
Mm-hmm.
and but it was a great experience.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I don't know. It just seemed like a lot of things have happened that been pretty nice for me.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, you've blazed the trail.
Well, I don't know about that. I never really felt that way. I just love what I do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I feel so fortunate to be able to carry out my dreams, to have a little place out here. And I had a lot of help. My husband's family, of course, helped us get started.
Mm-hmm.
And some of those things I just hope that my father-in-law and grandfather-in-law know that I'm getting them done.
Mm-hmm. So do you still, you don't feel like you've blazed the trail necessarily?
No, I don't.
Yeah.
I just think I did what I wanted to do,
Mm-hmm.
and I think I'm really lucky to be able to do that. Now, I can tell a lot of funny stories about things out here. Somebody said you can't have registered cattle and not have a gravel pit, oil well, or another job or something, and I guess that's one thing that makes me feel good. We did all this with cattle
Mm-hmm.
in kind of a harsh kind of country, they say.
Mm-hmm.
And but my needs aren't really great personally. So, and I had a good family. And a daughter now that's led us into we went into the meat business, but I get a lot of credit for that, establishing a lot of things that way. We got to feed the President of the United States, and that was one of the greatest honors we were asked to, and had to go through a lot of hoops to get there. But it was pretty nice for a little company as small as we were to win the battle when you had to go through a lot of taste contests.
For what event did you feed?
President Bush's first inaugural.
His first inaugural.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
That's something.
They called us up.
Mm-hmm.
Senator K. Bailey Hutchison called us up and said, "We're going to have a dinner, big dinner, what we call the Texas black tie boots." And she said, "We know you have that little company out there, and would you like to try to be? And we thought about it, said, yeah, we'd try.
Mhm.
And so we had to send the whole ribeye up to this hotel. I guess we sent about 6 or 8 because you had to win the contest. I mean, the first one we sent up, they said, well, you want to taste.
Mhm.
But can you repeat it? You know? And so we sent another. Finally, we said, "Are you guys just enjoying eating our meat?" But anyway, then they called us and said, "Can you feed 500?" It wound up to being 1,000.
Wow.
And my daughter and her husband got to fly up there and be right with the president and everything. So it was a great honor.
Yes.
So this probably goes down as probably one of the biggest things we've got to do.
Mhm.
And we were the first, we were the sole supplier of CAB, all natural beef, as long as we were in business. And so it's, we've had just a great run, that's all I can say.
Mhm. Have you, all of your years of experience being on livestock judging teams, did you ever take the other role and be a judge?
When I first got out of college, I judged a few, and I decided that wasn't my cup of tea. I just didn't care for it. In fact, I was going away from liking livestock shows because I got to thinking they're kind of artificial. And in the position I held at that time, working for our association, I thought, this is not a good thing because you're going to make
A
somebody
little
mad.
bit, conflict of interest or whatever. People could perceive that.
And then after I moved out here, I just said, no.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a lot of people really, I know several young girls, a few young girls, or they're not so young anymore, but young ladies that judge quite a few cattle shows, and they really like it. But I just never cared to do that.
Did you ever talk to students about the experience of it to try to give them tips or anything?
Well, I tell them all that, I think it's one of the days' experiences. I think it teaches so much. Well, a lot of these fellows I know today were on other judging teams. K-State, Ohio, and different places. The people you meet, the confidence you build up in yourself and to make decisions, and have to stand by them and, have to give you reasons why you stood by them. And so, I tell them with the experience, and I always admire kids that because it takes something out of your life. You're not going to run around every night and have a good time and make that judging team. No. Yeah, I encourage it because most of the ones we have out here are not even in where they have judging teams. They're just in management. Did you do a lot of horseback early on in ranching? Oh yeah,
A lot of things horseback.
I did practically all the riding, checking pastures and everything for about the first 25 years. While my husband was building fences and this, and this. And then we didn't take trailers. I'd start out here and take me a little lunch and a canteen of water and stay going all day, Now it's much easier. We all load up the trailer, go. And then we have our pastures cut up a lot more now. But yeah, I really enjoyed that. And I still say you can't see a cow as good as you can horseback. I mean, when you were riding and watching that old cow for about 2 mile drive or something, and you look down over her top and all and seeing how she's walking and all, that's probably the best way. But now I've got me a 4-wheel mule, When my knees gave way, I gave up riding, but I still miss it. I wouldn't say I was a great horseback rider, but as far as cowboy and all that. But I kept them gentle.
Did you rope?
No, I didn't rope.
Didn't rope?
No,
I never learned to rope either.
No, I never did learn to rope. Now, my kids could. My husband was a good roper, and my daughter was a state champion in roping. But I never did. So,
Okay. Well, this has been a great interview. We've just learned a lot about your experiences, and I guess in a way, I'm a little surprised that there weren't more hardships when you were coming in. I mean, you told me about some, and maybe there's some you don't want to talk about, but I expected it to just be a battle all along, while you were in school through the years. And from what you've told me today, you didn't really see it that way so much. You told me about some little things that happened, but you didn't feel like it was a huge struggle. Am I right on that?
Well, that's kind of like when we went in the meat business. Everybody said you can't be done, you're going to lose the ranch and everything. Almost did. But I've always said I wasn't smart enough to recognize the bad problems. But I can't say that, I've heard people say, they thought this person treated you this, and I just didn't see that. The first thing I tried to be was, a lot of people get the wrong idea. If you're going to be in the cattle business and you're a woman, you got to be a tough old so-and-so, and kind of rude. Always wanted to be a lady along with it, and that's the way it was. And I always got treated like a lady, and I kind of think that was it. I think I didn't go where they wanted to go,
Was that from your upbringing?
I imagine, because my mother told me that girls didn't cross their legs at the knees; they crossed them at the ankles, and girls didn't sweat. First time I said something about sweating, oh my kid, she came apart at the seams, and she said, "Ladies don't sweat; they perspire." It's funny things how you remember some of those things 60, 70 years later. But yeah, I was raised to be a lady in a man's environment. I don't want to. I'm not saying I wanted to be treated like a daisy or something. I don't mean that. I mean, I'm just saying that whatever the deal was, I could be there and I could match you, but I'm gonna be a lady about it. And I've had a lot of ladies that think they get mistreated in where politics, whatever. And I said, no, if you're as smart as that man and know your business as well, whatever it is, you'll be treated okay. And I believe that. And like I say, I'm not too smart, so I may have been run over and didn't know it. I don't know.
Do you have a competitive streak? What do you think?
Well, yeah. I've been accused of that.
Oh, well, that's okay though.
Well, I don't think, and I have a hard time with people that aren't competitive. I really do. And I don't belong, I'm not saying this to sound mean or bad or whatever, but I don't belong to any ladies' clubs. And I'm sure there's some really good ones that I could learn a lot from. But from the few I've been exposed to, they're just not my cup of tea, I'd say. They don't discuss the things I like to discuss. And I guess I am a little too much that way. I can't think of anything worse than belonging to a quilting club or some things like that. And people keep asking me, when are you going to move to town? I said, when they come out here and carry me out I don't plan to. Now, something might happen, but I've still got a lot of things to do out here. And I think I'm still able to do some things.
Have you had any kind of a network of other women like yourself that you've been friends with over the years at all?
Not really. Not probably as close as I should have, because I get to thinking I don't really have a lady friend. Close. I have a lot of friends.
Well, it's hard when you're in a remote location for one thing, but
that's true. But I've had a lot of ladies, and I told them I'd do it this year at our bull sale. I won't forget it done or not. That want me to kind of have a class for them. There's a lot of ladies. They own more land than men do today, I think.
Really?
Yes. There's more land owned by ladies in there. And I didn't realize. See, I don't think like that. And they don't feel good about, they don't feel confident and everything in their business. And they want me to have some classes just to sit down and give them some little Oh, just ideas, how you keep your business and about buying bulls and keeping records on the calves and all this. And so I promised them for several years. I guess I'm going to have to do it one of these days.
They want to tap into some of your knowledge.
Well, I love to share it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and sometimes I think, my Lord, some of those are such big operations, and I have such a little operation. Why would they ask me, But, and maybe that intrigues them too, that we've been able to make it as a smaller operation without any assistance.
That's interesting. Okay, well, my tape is blinking, so that means we're at the end of this tape. Is there any other quick thing you want to add?
Lord mercy, I've told you too much.
Oh, no, this has been great. Well, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You're more welcome.
It's been an honor, really.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it.
Well, thank you. Okay.
I'm honored that Oklahoma A&M, Oklahoma State would even consider me.
Oh.
Somebody asked me the other day, Mary said, what are they going to do? I said, this is going to the archives. And I think she's, oh my Lord. I said, that's what I think too. But she sees now, she majored in accounting. And realized right quick she probably didn't want to be an accountant. And I think she sees now, going to a larger university and really have, getting involved in what her using, how much it means. Like she's always, can't believe all these people. So, anyways.
Well,
But OSU's a good school.
yes,
It has been for a long, long time.
I'm glad you still feel that way. That's good. When
The only thing, you can't be everything to everybody. My father-in-law used to say, he kidded me all the time. He said, why don't you like those professors and tell them what they didn't teach you? About pulling away the mail and fixing the fences and water gap and fighting screw worms. And I told him that one time too. But you can't do it all.
right.
You can't do it. You gotta get out there and do it yourself. So,
Yeah. Some people call it the school of hard knocks, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. That was good little
Well, thank you.
added information.
Thank you.